Welcome to Crimson Guitars, welcome to the MF Kit Build, taking a great kit guitar and making it awesome. I am having an incredible amount of fun building this. I hope you're enjoying the watching of it. If you're watching this as we stream it, you can win the guitar if you enter. Check the link below. Enjoy the build. See you soon. This body is pretty much there. The through-body stringing, it's all glued together and functional and basically where we started. But anyway, there's a little bit more decoration to do. Part of the whole cyberpunk thing is Tron lines, matrixy bits, circuit board, basically. We have a guitar which has 80-year-old electricity in it, and I'm going to transfer an image of what is actually going on inside the guitar onto the top of the guitar. So of course I have a cheat sheet. Can you imagine if I did this out of my head and then did something backwards or wrong? Very likely I'm not. I am not good at electronics. Done. Okay, I'm fairly sure I've got this laid out properly. Not all of the lines are square or at the correct 45-degree angle, etc. I'm going to double check and triple check that it's actually valid, but I'm quite happy with how this looks. Yeah, with a little bit of tidying up, I think we'll be sorted. I was concerned about jumping over other wires, but there was just no way that I could do this without that happening. I'm quite happy with how I've done the capacitors, so that those two dots there are a capacitor, a virtual capacitor essentially on the other side. Capacitor, capacitor, then to ground. But yeah, there's your output. Hey. Yeah, I'm enjoying this. Well, there we have it. A bunch of pretty lines and bits and pieces and stuff that you're probably not going to be able to focus on that closely. Now I need to transfer it into the instrument. Part of this build is me pig-headedly, as the owner of multiple CNC machines, also trying to prove that one doesn't require a CNC machine or a 3D printer to do very intricate, very delicate, very precise and interesting work. You just don't. A 150-year-old carving tool can be just as useful, if not more so, than a machine with a few buttons to push. It is, for me at least, infinitely much more fun doing these things by hand as well. Option the first, and this is what I thought I was going to be doing, Proxon or Dremel type tool, rotary tool, and what I was going to do was get a piece of Perspex or something slightly flexible, masking tape and superglue that to the body, and then use that as a guide with which to route a line, and then take that off, move it a little bit, and go again. Just the thought of that leaves me cold and bored. It would be hours of noise and dust, and I just don't fancy it. So instead, what I am going to do is, using a ruler and a knife and a tinsy tiny little 150 or so year old front bent chisel, I'm gonna just chop it all out. Now the other thing that allows me to do is be a little bit more delicate actually than the Proxon currently. I've got a 2mm cutter that would cut deep enough, fast enough to make it worthwhile, whereas this will be about 1.5 or thereabouts. So just a little bit more delicate, and yeah, this is going to be fun. All right, so I basically am going to be eyeballing it. I need to mark on one side of the line, then flip over and go onto the other, and it's going to take a little bit of figuring out, really. So we'll see how this works out. And then once that's done, I need to go a bit deeper. Okay, so I've got a guide slot already cut, and I'm just using a brand new scalpel to go gently down, like so. There we go. So I'm going to get used to this, and the whole thing's going to speed up. Even with this being the first line that I've done, it's faster than it would have taken me. It's gone better than if I'd used a Dremel or the Proxon. Just setting up the template is really time consuming. Yeah, this whole thing is going to be done in a jiffy. Done. Fun times. Okay, so that was a hell of a lot easier than it looks, and it's just worked out really well. Using a Dremel would have been problematic, not only because we've obviously got lots of very straight lines that need to be left very straight, but also because there are curves and carves and dips and hollows and things. And yeah, that makes getting an accurate depth difficult. Now I still have holes to drill, but I have to do that after I've inlaid something. Now the inlay could be aluminium inlay powder. We have copper, we have bronze, there's all sorts of bits and pieces like that. It could be inlay powder mixed with epoxy or mixed with super glue. It could be epoxy on its own. It could be glow-in-the-dark powder mixed with, well, just all sorts of things, really. I have a different plan. And that different plan involves being able to pull something just from out of view, and it's over on the other workbench. Do you know what it is? Can you hear it? Can you hear it? Aluminium foil. Okay. So here we go. Now, I've been watching people make solid balls of aluminium and carefully hammering it together, and you get a ball and it's solid, and then you buff it and it buffs up really nice. And the second I saw that, I thought, you know what, we can make a guitar out of that. And when I tried, I failed utterly. But the processes, it's actually really, really interesting. So, well, let us begin. Start off, piece of foil, crunch it, and because in this case I'm doing something fairly narrow and small, and then twist it so that it stays, so that it becomes one homogeneous thing. If you flatten layers together and then try and cut them out, the layers will just come off. If it's around itself like this, then you have an integral snake of aluminium that will, once compressed, essentially be solid aluminium. And yeah, it's surprising, actually, and it's my new favorite thing. So well, there we go. And super glue and goggles. Emphatically, you do not want to get super glue in your eyeballs. It sucks. Essentially, other than this area here, I've got a solid guitar, and even this, there's very little give there, which is good. So basically what we're going to do is compress it and fill each slot. Now, doing one long sort of run like that is actually not ideal. It's difficult. It doesn't necessarily work. So what I'm going to do is smaller sections. You can even compress it so it's slightly flat, and then go in like so. You can see why I love this. Alright, I've got a thin applicator here. that's all in. Lots of banging around there, but hey, what can you do? Okay, there is the potential for some of it ripping out in the sanding and leveling process, and we'll refill, and it's a process. But yeah, we're there. I'm going to let half of it cured overnight. The rest of it was done this morning. I'm going to start sanding, and we'll see what happens. But here's what we look like so far. A bit messy. I'm trying to avoid machine tools or power tools wherever possible in this build. And when I was doing the tests for this, i.e., because you always play around with random bits of wood before you actually work on a guitar, I just used a leveling beam with fairly coarse paper in it. Problem is my leveling beams are perfectly, pristinely, exactly flat, of course, and I have a carved, curved guitar here. I also have, I probably could have done one line at a time and it would have been easier, but with the multiple lines, basically, sander. Sander's coming out. I'm, yeah, gonna get a dust mask on and make some noise. So, yeah, sorry. Hey, there's my mask. Power. Part of the way there, really. Now, let us have a quick look. It's not quite as clean yet as I would like, but it's getting there. So, for example, there's some bits like that where I think a little bit more sanding will get us down to a more consistent line. What I'm going to do now is put in the dots, the joins, and put them in, and then it's down to the factory floor. Really, I want to do a lot of sanding down there. This is the sort of thing that you can do on your own workbench, but I have extraction down there that's better than what I have up in my studio here. So, and I've just lost the extension lead for my air filter. So there we go. Anyway, what do you think at this stage? I can't wait till the stain goes on. It's going to bring the whole thing together. Okay, so got to mark these things out again. And then it's basic inlay. Let's just double check I did that one right. I find few things more pleasurable than using a drill from 1880 or so on a cyberpunk guitar build. What a life. All right, now we have holes, and they are drilled, and they're nice and done and sorted. And in order to get the correct look for a PCB board, a printed circuit board, yes, I did just say that, you fool. I've got some stainless steel tube. I wish I had aluminium tube that looked as good, but all the aluminium we've got has got very thick walls and it doesn't look very nice. And I am going to install that now. This is basically traditional inlay type stuff, really, but it's all good. And at some point in the imminent future, I'm really going to have to tidy my workbench up. Probably actually while glue is curing in between, because yeah, tidy workbench means tidy mind? No? Organized mind? Less likelihood of damaging your guitar while you work on it. That's the important one. Okay, fun times. Hammer. Steel. Okay, actually, let's do this properly. Saw away. Okay, so the process, the holes are 3 mil, the tube is 3.2 or so because I wanted a nice tight fit, as is only fitting. Oh crikey, I can't believe I went there. I'm just slightly beveling the leading edge, and that just helps it go in. Dab a super glue around the edge. I'm really liking this whip tip thing on the end of my super glue. And then it's just a case of gently but firmly installing the stainless steel. Okay, burst of accelerator, and what I've got here is an old jeweler's saw, piercing saw, and cutting through hollow tubes. If you don't want to use a Dremel, hacksaws tend to bind. Once you've got through and you're actually cutting on 2 walls of the tube, hacksaws tend to bind. A piercing saw works really well. Yeah, there is another option. I could potentially cut each of these pieces to fit beforehand using a vise, etc. But well, I don't want to. I tend to avoid that. The main reason really is each of these holes is a slightly different depth, and when you do that, you run the risk of hitting the inlay down a little bit too deep, and then you have to start again. It's just a bind, really. It's not good. So this way does risk slightly damaging the top of the guitar though. Okay, a few bits and pieces fell out in the process. There were a couple of spots where below the aluminium that I'd put into the inlays, there was a bit of a cavity because I hadn't heated hard enough. So I'm just filling those in. The contact terminals are in. There's a small section where I'd actually forgotten to put some inlay, but we're pretty much there. So I'm going to do a little bit of repair work, and then it's off down onto the factory floor to use the sanders. I suppose I better tidy up my workbench, really. It's a bit sad. Thank you for watching the build. Don't forget that you can win this guitar yourself if you're watching this in July 2018. If you are not, check out Crimson Guitars anyway. Thank you for your support. I really appreciate it. Click like, subscribe, notification bell, Patreon, all of it. I'm too excited. Watch the next video. Goodbye. What the hell am I doing with my face and the thing and the stuff?